So good evening and welcome. My name is Kari Lazar White, and I am the executive director and co-founder of the Brotherhood Sister Soul. I know so many of you well, and I appreciate you coming back to join us in this conversation this evening and being in our home. And then so many of you are new to the space, to the community, and so you're welcome here. You're welcome to this space and to this community. And we just appreciate everybody's attendance and participation this evening. So thank you all. Just wanted to start there with acknowledgement and thanks. We hold these conversations on a regular basis. The idea is to talk about the work of Brotherhood Sister Soul in new and intersectional ways. And so I'll briefly talk about our work just to create a kind of foundation and set the table. But really, this evening is about a conversation with and the words from three of our phenomenal board members who coordinated their colors this evening. And I said I was going to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it. And then I agreed to dress in all black as the off to the three of them. But these three doctors are brilliant and will be offering their wisdom and insights. The Brotherhood Sister Soul was founded in 1995. I founded the organization along with my childhood friend, Jason Warwin, who's standing in the back and will wave. There we go. And, we grew up together and came here to, this block to create an organization. The idea was to create a formed community, a space that was about positivity and knowledge and community and future, an organization that works at the intersection of educating, organizing, and training. There's so much different work that we do here. Sometimes it's hard to describe it all, but those three words, that intersectional approach of educating young people in transformational ways to understand the world, to be social change makers, to be global citizens, to seek to understand issues of race and class and gender and their intersection, to understand inequality and inequity, and to be change makers. That's the core of what we're doing. It's the empowerment of young people to not just claim the future as the old often used adage is, but to actually claim the present. We know that young people were at the forefront of social change movements forever in this country. No change has occurred without young people. And so our central work is to elevate their voices, to train them, to support them so that they can lead. And then we train folks across the country and even internationally on our model. We've trained over 3,000 educators from 300 organizations to serve another 25,000 young people across the country. We have formal programming based as far as Bermuda, Brazil, where Jason founded programming and still runs today. We are training folks throughout the Boston area and DC, did a training in San Francisco last year. So while based here in this beautiful building in Harlem, we have a national reach. And then we organize. We organize for structural change. We are unapologetically a justice organization. We work to change conditions, to call attention to conditions. We are unafraid to talk about the political realities that our young people face and the inequity that they face. And we are unafraid to tackle big issues, whether that's inequity in housing, inequity in schooling, inequity in the environment, racial and gender justice. These are the issues that we work on each and every day. And so part of this work here is about being an organization that tackles the day-to-day work of feeding young people, literally feeding their minds and feeding their bellies, and then the broader macro work of trying to change what they see and experience every single day. And a lot of places do one or the other. There are not a lot of places that do that work together in the same space. And I think it's one of the things that makes our work unique. And so as we talk about our work, one of the things that we seek to do is to bring in voices and experts to help us deepen it, to advise us, to counsel us. And I am certainly biased, but I firmly believe we have the best board of directors in the land. It is a national board across the country, 10 or 11 board members in other parts of the nation. About 20 are here. And we have a lot of different types of people on our board. And one of the types that's on our board are subject matter experts. And you'll hear from three of them this evening. We believe that having that level of expertise, people grounded in the work that we do, is deeply helpful to the organization as advisors, as supporters, as guiders. And so this evening, we thought we would have three of them join us in conversation. You have their long bios on your seat, well-deserved bios. Some people have long bios that are not well-deserved. But, we do these panels a lot, and I think it's important to just provide context of who these three women are. And so I'm just going to read a few sentences on each. In the middle is Dr. Farah Jasmine Griffin. She is the William B. Ransford Professor of English and Comparative Literature and African American Studies at Columbia University. She also served as the inaugural chair of African American and African Diasporic Studies. Her major fields of interest are American and African American literature, music, and history. She's published widely on issues of race and gender, feminism, and cultural politics, is the author or editor of 8 books, and her activism has centered on issues of education, poverty, and gender equity, especially as they impact women and children. Her most recent book, Read Until You Understand: The Profound Wisdom of Black Life in Literature, was published in 2021. And Farah is the co-vice chair of our board of directors. So welcome, Farah. Then to my immediate left in the, winter, fall greens is Dr. Lida Orzeck, the co-founder of the lingerie company Hanky Panky in 1977, currently the co-CEO of the company, $50 million annual business, merchandise sold in over 70 countries. And she, along with her co-founder, restructured the business in 2017 to be an employee-owned company. So that deserves applause in and of itself. This important step was prominently featured in a long piece in the New York Times, and Lida has said that her activities are guided by her interest in the arts, and her philanthropy is dedicated to educational equality and social justice with a focus on racial equity. She's also a trustee at Barnard College and a former member of the board of the Southern Poverty Law Center for over 10 years, and is a board member of the International Organization for Women in Development, whose efforts are directed at the support of women in Rwanda. So welcome, Lida. And then last but certainly not least, in the brilliant ambers and hennas, Dr. Alondra Nelson is widely known for her research at the intersection of science, technology, and politics. She holds the Harold F. Linder Chair in the School of Social Science and is past president of the Social Science Research Council and was professor of sociology at Columbia University and served as the inaugural dean of social science. From 2021 to 2023, she was deputy assistant to President Joe Biden, acting director, principal deputy director for science and society for the White House Office of Science and Technology. She's worked to bring social science expertise explicitly into the work of federal science and technology strategy and policy. Named 10 People Who Shaped Science in 2020 by Nature, and in 2023 was included in the inaugural Time magazine 100 list of most influential people in AI. In October 23, she was nominated by the White House and then appointed to the United Nations Secretary General Guterres to serve as the UN high-level advisory body on AI. Alondra Nelson. So with that intro and with that overview, of all panels I've moderated, I'm going to speak the least on this panel due to the three women I'm in conversation with. But I really wanted to ask each of you to speak first, just personally, about your work and your careers. What brings you to BroSis? There's so many organizations you could be involved with, so many boards you could serve on. While we have the most wonderful board in the world, it's also a very hardworking board. This is not a gentlemen and ladies at lunch board. And so why this organization in the context of your work? What brings you to BroSis? And maybe Farah, as our co-vice chair, you can begin.
Well, thank you, Kari, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I think that the work that I do with BroSis is probably the most important work that I do. And what brings me to it, one, just the vision of the organization, the vision that Jason and Kari put forth, the commitment of the extraordinary staff, who work 24/7, and the young people. The way that the organization passes on a set of values to young people who don't see a problem and feel overwhelmed by it, but see a problem and think, okay, what are we going to do? How do we jump in? And I'll just use one example and then I'll let it go. And this is answers the question of why I work with BroSis. During COVID, um, when the staff and the board and the leadership of this organization said, "What do our young people need?" And that was just the question: What do our young people need, and how can we address that? And one of the many things they needed computers, they needed to be able to set up and study at home, but there was also food insecurity. And we were not an organization that took care of food, but we became one. And suddenly it wasn't just our young people who needed food, but the community they resided in needed food. And to just watch this whole organization pivot from the board to the young people to the staff, I thought that's the kind of organization that I am just so honored to devote my time to. Yeah. And I could give example after example after example. And it's usually some young person who embodies that. Walk in the building, and it's like the youngest one who embodies that, who blows me away. So after a hard day at Columbia, which I had today, I come here and I'm like, this is the work that matters. So that's why I do what I do with BroSis.
Lida, Alondra, who would like to go next? Go ahead, Lida.
Well, when I was on the board of the SPLC, we were dealing with such huge issues, and they were systemic issues. We never approached individual work, and the Brotherhood Sister Soul is it's not really the exact opposite, because in the long run, systemic issues are absolutely being addressed with all of the work that's done with the youth members. But that is probably why I was interested to make that shift when my term with the Southern Poverty Law Center ended. I loved the fact that BroSis is a New York organization. I'm from Brooklyn, and it just feels very, very comfortable. There are so many things that Farah already mentioned. The wraparound work that's done, it's sort of 24/7. If the kids are having any difficulties off hours, this is a second home. It's an organization that has love in the mission statement. And it's just all so impressive to me. Every bit of work that, of course, Kari can explain more clearly and comprehensively than I can do. But I've just loved my 2 years on the board so far. I hope I stay for a long time.
We do too. And notice how people from Brooklyn always get it in that they're from Brooklyn. Alondra.
Thank you all for coming. I love this organization. I love this community. I believe so much in what they do. So, I'm a sociologist of science and technology. The first book I wrote about was about young people doing extraordinary things. It was about the Black Panther Party in the late 60s and early 1970s, doing things like genetic counseling and screening in their communities, like outrageous. I mean, things that sound literally outrageous. And I remember, writing the book, workshopping the book, and then publishing the book, and people being like, they didn't really, 16-year-old kids, like what? They didn't really do that. And I think that work, also being a teacher and working with young people, they are wise and they are brave, and to be able to be part of an organization and a community that is enabling that wisdom and that courage and that voice to sort of come out is I'm just so immensely proud of the work. And I learned things from these young people and from this organization. So one of the things that from my sliver of the world, and I brought some of my nerdy science policy society people here this evening. Thank you for coming. Is stop and frisk in New York City. So this organization was part of raising public awareness about the problem of stop and frisk and its disproportionate negative impacts on Black and brown young men in particular, and played a real role in bearing witness to what that meant in their lives and their experiences of that. And of course, increasingly that includes, taking genetic evidence, genetic samples from young people and the like, which I've talked to the community here about as well. One of my first experiences working with BroSis, I think, was at the Women's March. So, these are young people who are leading marches and who are making signs and who want to change the world. And I think, I increasingly feel like people in my generation and beyond, we have really had our chance to lead and to transform. And we got a lot of things wrong. I think we're living in a world that manifests that we got a lot of things wrong. And I just, with my dying breath, I want to enable young people who have a vision for getting it right to do that. And this is an organization that tries to do that every day. Lida mentioned the wraparound, service, which is, I think used in the sector, used in philanthropy, but it really is the extraordinary work here. Farah spoke to it as well, that just acknowledges that people are whole people, and that as much as we admire and some of us support and are engaged in, I'm looking at my friend Tarsha Black, who I haven't seen in 15 years, who I met when I volunteered at the Harlem Children's Zone, and she was working there as well. So critically important program, but sometimes it sort of ends at the end of the school day or after school programs end. And the work of this program is for the whole person and often for their whole life. There are staffers here who were here as children, who were served by this organization, who now work here. I mean, it's an extraordinary, extraordinary community in place. And the fact that Carrie and the team and Jason are now able to scale this model that values and embraces the whole person is just an extraordinary thing. So there's no place I'd rather be this evening, and no board I'd be more proud to serve on.
Thank you, Alondra. So, Farah, I wanted to come back to your work a little bit. And as someone whose academic work and writing and research focuses on African-American literature and history, race and gender, feminism, cultural politics. Again, BroSis is an organization that is very much based in the historic legacy and traditions of Black and womenist movements, very much in the conversation around what cultural nationalism and organizing means. And as an expert in the field, I'm wondering if you could just kind of step back and talk about that landscape a little bit and how, your work obviously speaks to that landscape, how our work speaks to it. So not just about BroSis, but kind of stepping back from a bit of a historical lens, if you can put on the professor cap for a second for us.
Happy to do so. I mean, I think Alondra started us on that lane when she was talking about her work with the Black Panther Party, which was young people. And we inherit these sort of very easy histories that are kind of the icons and the photographs and the famous people, but we forget that it's really kind of the nameless grassroots people in the neighborhood serving breakfasts to the kids because they realize that the children are hungry, that's also or the health clinics, which is what the Panther Party was doing, or before that, SNCC organizing, actually working with Miss Hamer. Those were young people out there organizing, not making the big famous name for themselves. And I see BroSis in that tradition, but for the 21st century, right? And, it's not like we're making it up. Jason and Kari knew that, right? They knew that history. But these are young people who are confronting they're standing in a legacy of youth organizing, but they're also confronting a really complicated world. And our young people know that. That's why there is a program about the environment. That's why if it were warmer, we could go out and walk through the garden and learn something about how they learn about the environment and climate change and their role and responsibility in it. At the same time, our young people run a farmer's market because of the food insecurity in their community, right? And make sure there's healthy produce available to their communities, so that they are in a legacy of youth organizing. I mean, we could go even further back to organizations in Alabama in the 30s, where Angela Davis's mother was one of the youth organizers in her own community. That there's a long legacy that BroSis is a part of, but that they are also of this moment. But there's a sense that there is no crisis that is so overwhelming that you as young people can't step into, right? That there is something transformative that you are capable of doing, that we all share this planet. We all have a responsibility for making it better. And I think that's something that the young people who are here in this moment share with those older organizations, and that we absolutely need that commitment as they move forward. They're energized and they're getting that training and that understanding of themselves here in this space.
Thank you, Farah. Lida, I mentioned in your intro that you serve on the board of trustees of Barnard, one of the elite women colleges in our nation. And one of the things we often ask of board members is to leverage their contacts and resources on behalf of the organization that are beyond financial, right? It's about different kinds of in-kind support. That might be getting computers for young people. In Lida's case, she was absolutely essential in helping several of our young women receive full rides to Barnard. 3 young women who would not have had that opportunity, but for her support. I don't know what that means in terms of playing it forward for the future, but that's an incredible contribution. One of those young women was undocumented. Her family didn't think she could go to college at all, and ends up at Barnard getting a degree there. And the Brotherhood Sister Soul has many different programs, and our programs are non-gendered really across the board. There's nothing that's about gender connected to the programs. But we have one program, our Rites of Passage program, that we have found absolutely essential to many of our young people's development. It's been really life-changing for some of our young people. And that is a space where boys and young men, and those who identify as boys and young men, can join a brotherhood chapter. And for 4 to 6 years, they define what it means to be a man, a leader, a brother. They are guided on that path by their direct elders. They write a mission statement about what those things mean. They write a personal oath of dedication of how they're going to live their life. And it's developing a moral and ethical code, a step that most adults have never taken. It's a guiding document for their life. And our young women and our girls join a program called Sister Soul. Soul is spelled as our name, S-O-L, Sisters of the Sun. They define what it means to be women and leaders and sisters. They have a space where women guide them on their path through adulthood, on what that all means to develop a moral and ethical code, yes, but to have a safe space where they can share their joys and their pain, the wonderful experiences they have, and sometimes the massive tribulations that they have faced in their life. And so we have found that it's absolutely essential to have those spaces as one option for our young people. And so if you could just speak about that part of, your career and its intersection with our work, why it's so important to have spaces for young women and women to come together, to be in comradeship with one another, to be supported in single-gendered environments for young women. It's central to what we do, and I know it's so close to your heart.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that the young women who were accepted at Barnard, that would have happened completely on their own. The young women who came from here, they had all the credentials. Just, I did, I
I'm going to interrupt you there.
Very little.
So while the young people get in on their own right, so many middle class and upper middle class and wealthy children have doors open for them. They are told that it's possible. And for a lot of our young people, the idea that they could go to Barnard when their own families sometimes are saying that's not possible or that's not in front of you, to be able to open a door and a board member to receive them with open arms and say this is possible and I'm here is absolutely transformational for young people. So just don't undercut that.
Okay, I won't. But I will say it was an honor to be able to do that. I was so happy that I was available, a trustee, just, an alum, they listen. They listened when I said what I said. And I felt really, really proud that I was able to accomplish that. Rites of Passage is just about the most mind-blowingly wonderful cornerstone program of BroSis that has national, if not international, reach, because the Torchbearers Institute is how the curriculum goes out to educators all over the country and the world. I absolutely love the multi-year, so many curricula areas that it covers. I can imagine if I had something like that as a young person, it would have been a fantastic experience. And to see kids coming from circumstances where that's just so out of the realm of possibility, but if they come to BroSis and they make a commitment, because it is not just a show up one day and then skip and don't come back, or just do an after school program. It's much more than that. It's very in depth, and it has a tremendous reputation, and it's one of my sort of favorite things to talk about when I talk about BroSis to folks and get them interested. And also, I do love that there is a Sister Soul. Yes, Barnard is an all-women's college. There are very few of them left. I think it is extremely important for women to have the opportunity to be educated in a single gendered environment, because you can't do what you don't see, and modeling is so very important, and the girls are getting that here, and I'm just thrilled about that as well.
Thank you, Lida. Alondra, you mentioned already, your book, everyone should read it, it's brilliant, on the Black Panther Party, and you're writing on race and DNA. You've also written about, the issue of medical discrimination. You've edited a book on Afrofuturism, which is a subject and a theme I love. And, as an organization, we use the lens of critical race theory to kind of use a legal framing for it. You've mentioned already that we have food programs, and Farah has talked about the kind of community response that certainly was inspired by what the Panthers did. And so often the Panthers were seen as, the leather jackets and the guns and the berets and looking cool, but the work that was done to feed young people and to provide a safe space for young people every day inspired us from our founding. And, one of our founding board members, who probably many in the audience know, Sekou Sundiata, was on our board. And sorry, I know Sekou's name does that for folks at times. Beloved board member, and, major force in his own right. And, Sekou was a Panther in his young years. And when we started the organization, we got curricula that had come directly from the Panthers. And Iris Morales was a huge supporter of ours, who was one of the founders of the Young Lords, and now is a, powerful media, and voice person in the media space. And, I mentioned Afrofuturism, and for those who get the connection, our young people often call this building Wakanda, which, and, Wakanda is kind of a modern example of Afrofuturism. It's just kind of dropped on this block. It appears out of nowhere. And so when I think about so much of your work and your writing, and again, I hear the kind of the synergies, just if you could talk more about that work of yours and, how you see certain elements of that here at BroSis.
Well, Afrofuturism was some of the first work that I did. I was some of the first work that I ever published, I started an online community in 1998 called Afrofuturism. It was a listserv, and we still had such things. So young people can look it up. And then it became a kind of email group. But and it was really about trying to have a different place of imagination about Black people's experiences in the world mediated by science and technology, and what could those be. And the stories that we, I think traditionally had were, Booker T did, that, or, George Washington Carver did lots of things with peanuts. And, we think this guy invented the, what is it, the street light? No, was it Latimer? No, it was,
Okay,
but this is actually to my point, right? So the narrative that we had were
Garrett Morgan,
the 5 greats that everyone knew, right? Or things like the Tuskegee syphilis study, right? So it was like 5 exceptional people you could never dare to accomplish or even imagine accomplishing such things, and then extraordinary abuse and exploitation, both completely true. But what is the sort of technological future imaginary for regular people, for other people, and what other things have been done and accomplished, and how do non-experts, non-PhDs sort of strive to make sense of science and technology in their world. And so that kind of strain goes through really all of my work. And it is a profound form of empowerment. And I think, the young people here have that, and the ability to sort of say, I might never have a PhD in chemistry or something, but I can understand things about the world that have to do with science and technology. And if we're being honest, they know technology better than any of us. Anyways, I think is just tremendously important and incredibly empowering, and important for our future. If we think about even the climate work here, if we're thinking about the need to do clean energy and kind of different kinds of, we literally need different imaginaries for how we're going to live in a world that's sustainable. And that does take a profound act of imagination, and also different types of expertise and design, and, all of those things. And so, that's why I'm so hopeful about the work here.
So a piece of what we do, which kind of runs throughout all of our different programs, and Lida and Alondra and Farah have touched on different aspects of our work. We have lots of different intersections of where young people can join our organization. I mentioned the Rites of Passage piece, but we also have programming around the environment, around the arts. We have health and wellness programs. We provide mental health support for our young people and legal representation. We provide up to 250 meals a day for our young people, prepared by world-class chefs. The food you're eating tonight, that's what they cook for young people. Larger portions, because our young people eat more than you guys, but wonderful, wonderful food. These are chef and executive chef and assistant chef who have cooked in some of the best restaurants in the city and wanted to come back and cook for their community. So at every level, we're thinking about how we engage with young people. Space is so important to us. So this building, we moved in June of 2022, and it was a massive undertaking for, at the time, a small nonprofit to build a building of this size. I often quote him. The Hatboro president, Mark Levine, said it was like making peace during wartime. That's how difficult it can be for a nonprofit to build a building in the city. And we built this really mecca, this example. New York Times ran a 1.5-page review. Michael Kimmelman said it was an instant landmark. It's about a building that tells young people every single day that they matter. For those of you who take a tour when we're done in a few minutes, you'll see artwork from Carrie Mae Weems and Derek Forjor and Allison Janae Hamilton that was donated. You'll see just beautiful furniture and items and young people's artwork on the walls. And so all the messaging that tells them that they're important. You'll see signage that tells young people if they're LGBTQIA, if they're Muslim, if they're undocumented, that this is their space. As soon as they walk in, before a staff person says anything, you'll see the sign on the wall. All the teaching moments. If you use the restroom, you'll see artwork in there that's its own teaching. It'll just be a print from Jacob Lawrence, and it'll say his name so that a young person will maybe investigate who Jacob Lawrence was. So every floor is saying that young people are important. The word we challenged our architect to take into consideration was the word enlightenment. what does it mean to build a building that's about the enlightenment of children? And so in the daytime, light cascades into every corner of the building. It's our attention to the building. We have a team of 5 who do our facilities work. They almost all alum of the organization. They love this space. They take care of it as they would take care of their own home. They are as important to the organization as, Jason and I am as co-founders. It's how we all run this space together. It was mentioned that a lot of our staff are alum of the organization, and nearly half of our staff went through the program and have returned to educate the next generation. And so all of that gives us a foundation of a place. This is a very much place-based organization working on this broad policy work. And we are unafraid to talk about the inequity and inequality our young people face, that 10% of our New York City public school system children are homeless. Nearly 100,000 children are homeless in this city. That in this island of Manhattan, 15% of people live on under $10,000 a year. And that's a lot of the young people that we serve, and what that means for a family or for a young person. And we're unafraid to name it. That can bring about lots of dark days and sad days. And yet we have all the inspiration of what we do with young people each and every day. And so I say all of that to come to kind of a concluding conversation question, which is, this is a difficult year for this country, for this world. We know the campaign that is coming. We know the election that's coming. A big part of what we do is to talk to our young people about the political landscape and what it all means for them in a very real way in their life. And so I just wanted to ask each of you to talk about, what you are most concerned about or fearful about, and what you are most hopeful for in this year and in this time, as your work influences you, as the work here and what we've talked about this evening. But what gives you hope? What gives you concern in this moment? You could start with either word that drives you first.
Because I am the person of fewest words here. So I am a pessimist. Let me just start with that. So, and I'm very concerned that this is an election year. Very, very concerned that it's not going to go our way. It does give me hope that there's an organization like this, and of course there are other organizations too that can be used to get out the vote. That's the most important. That's the hopeful message, is that if there is enough of a voter turnout, the elections might go our way. I'm assuming there is not one person in this room who isn't aligned with that, but okay. I hate to say that, but the whole pessimism part of me, but it is there. That is one reason why I do love being so involved with the Brotherhood Sister Soul, because it's such an uplifting place to be. Board meetings are uplifting, and coming to the building, I love being here and showing the building to friends and others. Everyone leaves with a completely different orientation about optimism, including me. Okay, well, this may be a little crass to say, but it is, because I do want to say that when I'm an entrepreneur, and I started my company 45 years ago, and I just had my nose to the grindstone for most of those decades. What happened though was that the business is actually a successful business, and that meant that I could turn my lens toward philanthropy, and that's what I'm hopeful about also, is that people will spend their money in the right way and look at organizations such as BroSis. This is one of the few organizations that I have prioritized in my everyday giving and also in my estate, thinking very long term. And I would like to invite everybody here to think in those ways. The organization is fantastic, but it takes a village to, to fundraise and collect the kind of financing that it needs to run successfully. So I'll do that for you, Kari.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Alley-oop, I sent you. All right, Alondra.
So, I wouldn't say that I'm pessimistic, because I'm not optimistic. But I just sort of feel like I'm always engaged in struggle. So no matter who wins, I'm still going to be struggling, and I'm always going to be struggling harder, depending on who wins. But no matter, even if things turn out the way we want them to turn out, the young people I care about are going to be engaged in struggle. We're still going to be struggling for them, and still going to be struggling for a better future for them. And so, one of the things I think that why I feel it's so important to emphasize the legacy that they inherit is that part of that legacy is the legacy of, like, we are down for the struggle, and we have always transformed this place. We are always at the forefront of transforming this place. That's what we have done, and I think that that's what we continue to do. We shore up each generation to remind them that that is what, that's part of what we have inherited, and that's what we do. And it's part of my own. It's easy to kind of look at it and say, what's the point? I'm tired of fighting, But when I see these young people that you all are putting out in the world, then it's like, well, I'm gonna, even if I lose, I'm gonna go down fighting for them. Because that's like that. Otherwise, why be alive, right? Why be alive if I'm not willing to fight for them? And they are a constant reminder to me of, this is why we do what we do. And I still believe that they can change the world, that we can change the world for them. I go to sleep every night, if I don't listen to MSNBC, thinking that we can still change the world. I still believe that. Yeah. Yeah.
Alondra.
Well, I'm from Southern California, so I'm optimistic. Well, shout out to the West Coasters here. I'm optimistic. I mean, I began where Farah just ended because of the young people, but I also think, I think my recent tenure in Washington, my life as a Black woman, like, the answer is always no. But the joy, the grift, the ingenuity, the fun, the challenge is always trying to get to yes, and that's life, right? And so I think, as hard as it is, it's also just, I think Farah used the same phrase, it's what we do. We figure out, we have so many phrases in the tradition around this: a way out of no way, possible out of the impossible, all of that. And, out of that comes art and beauty and community. I mean, some of the things we most cherish about the world have come out of the no, and confronting that with different possibilities.
So we always want to conclude on hope as we talk with young people. I think all of you have, outlined the intersection of our work and how it kind of overlaps with the historical legacy of what BroSis is based in, but also the very kind of forward thinking and future thinking approach of what we do. I agree with you, and will kind of say for me that it is the young people and the work we do each day that brings the hope. There's so much terror in the world. There's so much horror in the world. There's so much inequity. So easy to be depressed. So easy to be down. Turn off MSNBC. And the the circle, the cyclical nature of it all that can become so depressing. And I firmly believe in keeping one's eyes open to the realities. It's not that one should, start to kind of change your approach and not pay attention to what is happening in the world. We need witnesses. But in addition, we need the hope, and we need to inspire young people that they can and will change the world. It's the essence of what we're about here at BroSis. Again, the reason we hold these conversations is to introduce people to our work. As we conclude, for those of you who haven't seen the beautiful building, we'll have some tours, and you can kind of walk through and see the space that we've created. We'll end up down on the first floor, where there'll be a dessert, further food reception, and more drinks. So if you didn't get enough drinks, we need you to drink and eat on your way out the door, and we'll be doing that till 8:30. So we have some time for tours and for food. But just wanted to tell you how important the circle of community is for BroSis. We cannot do our work without that circle of supporters. So yes, our most central group is our board. And in addition to Alondra and Farah and Lida, we have other board members here. You can raise your hand and wave. So if you see them, there are 5 or 6 here, and we encourage you to talk to them as well. So yes, we need board members, but not everybody is ready to be on the board and all that entails. We need folks to open doors for our young people. We need people who can create pathways towards jobs and workforce exposure and internships. And so that doesn't have to be a permanent long-term job. That's just opening a door immediately so they're exposed to those possibilities. They can tour your place of work. You can come and be on a career panel. You could open a job for an opportunity for an internship over the summer. Or yes, we have all these young people. We have over 300 young people in college right now. So if you need employees, we also can send you employees, and we can, be in touch with your HR departments and provide high, quality, qualified candidates. So we need that kind of workforce exposure. If you're interested in opening the doors, a lot of folks here in higher education, to universities and colleges, our young people need the support just like wealthy kids do. Read the other day that there are wealthy families spending up to $100,000 to get children admitted into the schools of their choice. We're not spending $100,000 on a child. We are trying to open every single door that we can. So if you have connections in that world, we are looking for in-kind donations, another way you can support. We send off every year 50, 60, 70, 80 young people to college. We provide all of them with a laptop. We purchase that. If you have the ability to get free laptops for our young people, just using that as one example, huge in-kind donation to the organization. We need professional help. So we have 4 clinical social workers here. We have lawyers. We do legal representation and mental health support. If you are therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, can provide additional support and training, hugely important. So those are ways. We also need dollars. So no amount is too small. We need more people to support us financially as much as you're able. If you're at institutions that can support us financially, we need that kind of support as well. We have a gala coming up on May 9th. It'll be hosted by Hassan Minhaj, who's a Peabody Award-winning journalist and comedian and satirist. We're honoring Ai-jen Poo, who is the founder of Domestic Workers United, one of the leading labor organizers in our country. Some additional names coming soon. That's on May 9th. It's called Voices because it celebrates the voices of our young people, their commentary on the world. Many people don't like going to galas, find them boring or stiff. Ours is definitely not that. It's a wonderful evening of celebration. We encourage you to attend that and to support if you're able. If you know institutions, foundations, corporations that can sponsor, we need that kind of support. So it's not just reaching into your pocket, but institutional pockets that you might know. But this organization has done miraculous things. It has built this building. It has supported thousands of young people. It has done this work for 28 years because of our circle of supporters. So this was not done by 2 people or 50 people or 100 people, but many more. And it matters so much. And so if you're moved this evening, if you take the tour and you are moved by the building, if you've been moved by the words, we just encourage you to get involved. We're trying to build our community into a larger community, to a beloved community that supports everything that we do. And so I just want to thank you all for coming, for spending the time with us. And I mostly want to thank Alondra and Farah and Lida for their incredible comments this evening. So with that in the back, you have Helen and Kathy, I believe. If you can bring up the lights in the back a little bit. And if you're interested in taking a tour, there's Helen waving her hand in the white shirt, Kathy and Juanita in the rear. You can join them for a tour. If you've already toured, you can go down to floor 1 and drink and eat. And if you're touring, you'll end up down there. So we'll see you on the first floor. And thank you all so much for coming.